it opens up, and when I first heard it, it was like I was dragged into the tradition, like a documentary feeling.
Right.
Could you tell us something about that opening?
Well, you know, I was just trying to, I got an idea that it would be interesting to hear different musicians trying to describe the blues, you know? Because people are always asking musicians to try to describe it. And after they talk for a while, they end up saying, well, you really can't explain it, you know? So I was going through all these interviews and hearing them say things like that. And I decided to try and make a collage of that, of the musicians talking about music and about the blues, before I went into a version of my own of the blues.
It's a very emotional opening.
Yeah, well, it's you know, it was just interesting to me to hear people talk, and then say, well, really, you can't explain it, you know? And I actually put that about 3 times in the collage. You really can't explain it. It's hard to explain, you know?
That album has some very intriguing credits, like Peanut Butter.
Well, you know, my studio's right next door to my house, you know, so my kids are always running through. And I have one that's 7, and one who's 5, and then 3 and 2. So I give more credits. The guy who's 7, he helps me recording sometimes, you know. My engineer's not there, and I need somebody to operate the tape machine. I say, come on. And one time he erased my bass solo by mistake, you know? But it's great having him around.
So there was actually some peanut butter on the strings.
Yeah. Yeah.
This link with you being an innovative bass player, an innovative producer, working with the tradition and kind of refreshing it for people who might not be familiar with it. Mm-hmm. How do you feel doing that? Is it constantly there, the feeling that you are dealing with a tradition?
No, it's not constantly there because it's just really natural, you know. When I was developing, I mean, I'm still developing, but when in my early stages, I was really, I really had myself in a lot of different situations, traditional situations. I played a lot of straight-ahead jazz, a lot of classic R&B stuff. And I think in the back of my mind, I always hoped that one day I would be able to combine them into something new, you know? And so now that's what I'm doing, and it's something that I've been aiming at for a long time. So it's not in the forefront of my mind, it's just kind of naturally what happens now.
Could that, I wouldn't call it collage, but that mingling of styles, mm-hmm. Would that be typical for a musician composer who is also a producer?
I think it's more typical of somebody who grew up in New York City like I did, you know? When I grew up, I heard, you know, there was all this different styles of music coming at me equally, you know, and I was equally affected by it all. And I think it's just natural to try and kind of work that out, you know, for the rest of your life. Just try to find some combination that makes you feel good, you know. And then, yeah, I mean, being a producer definitely kind of gives me a different perspective on my music, you know. Being a writer, you know, all those things kind of combine to help you make what you need to make.
Somebody who is so involved with combining things, combining new and old, different styles, I can imagine that you don't like labels.
Oh, no, I don't mind them at all, you know. I know that labels are the only thing that kind of let people feel like they have control over something, you know. Without labels, you kind of just be sitting around, kind of floating around, not knowing what's what, and without labels, you don't know the rules to apply to a certain kind of music, and you don't know how to judge it, whether it's good or bad, you know. If you hear something, if you think you're listening to jazz and you hear a guy just talking with drums, you might say, oh, this is awful jazz. And somebody tells you, no, it's not jazz, it's hip-hop jazz. Then you go, oh, yeah, well then, you know, it's different rules. Okay, I understand. So I understand the labels, and it doesn't bother me, you know. I just kind of...
Do you use them?
No, I don't. Well, I don't really use them, you know. I mean, I understand why people need them, you know. And, but the thing that musicians have to realize is the labels come after the music, you know. And, you know, writers and journalists, they're usually the ones who give labels to this stuff. And sometimes they try and make the labels come first, you know. Sometimes the labels start dictating what the music should be, and that's the tail wagging the dog, you know. The music has to be created first, and then let them figure out what it is. Let them name it if they want, you know. But we have to make it, and we can't be as concerned with that stuff as they are, you know?